Hello, welcome to Middle East Matters. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rochelle Harrison-Pless. Coming up, Saad Hariri's contentious resignation as Prime Minister of Lebanon continues to rock the region. The crisis shining a spotlight on the power play between Saudi Arabia and Iran. A lifeline for Syrian refugees in Jordan struggling for a brighter future. They've been allowed to work since last year, but the NGOs and private companies hiring refugees have come up against some unexpected challenges. And it was a daring, high-stakes operation that many dismissed as impossible. The rescue of 13 animals from a theme park in war-torn Aleppo last July. We meet the vet who's behind the mission. We need food, medicine and shelter. A desperate plea from survivors of the devastating earthquake that rocked the Iranian-Iraqi border on Sunday night. The powerful 7.3 magnitude tremor has left hundreds of people dead and thousands more injured. Homes and buildings were destroyed in the hard-hit Kermanshah province in Iran, forcing many people to sleep outside in near-freezing temperatures. Emergency rescue workers are in a race against time, scrambling to find survivors as fears grow for those in the region's more remote areas. Next, Saad Hariri says he's headed back to Lebanon. It comes after he stepped down as the country's prime minister, a shock announcement made from Saudi Arabia earlier this month. Beirut claims the resignation was forced by Riyadh, the political crisis pushing to the forefront a regional power play between longtime enemies Saudi Arabia and Iran. Catherine Clifford explains.
Gathered in Beirut on Sunday, Saad Hariri's supporters call for his return. This after the Prime Minister announced his resignation from the Saudi capital last week. It's where he was born in 1970. A few years later, his father founded his Ogre construction firm in the country, which he left to his son after his death. The company filed for bankruptcy in the summer, a serious offence in the kingdom. And Hariri was heard before a corruption inquiry commission.
There are considerable debts which haven't been repaid, and so it's likely to be a means of putting pressure on Saad Hariri from Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who brought in a crackdown on corruption right at that moment, which targeted certain well-known people, including Saudis, and important ones at that.
When he announced his resignation, Saad Hariri said he feared for his life, pointing the finger at Shiite Hezbollah militias. His words carried all the more weight given the assassination of his father in 2005 when he was Prime Minister. In an attack, 4 Hezbollah militants were charged with planning. Some experts believe that the Prime Minister's fall began with this meeting with Iranian leader Ali Akbar Velayati. It took place the day before Hariri's departure and his resignation. This Lebanese analyst believes Saudi Arabia would never have stood for this rapprochement, as Sunni Saudi Arabia and Shiite Iran are fighting one another by proxy on several fronts.
In view of the situation which has evolved in Syria, which points to a defeat for Sunni militias and a victory for Iran through Hezbollah, which was very present on the ground, Riyadh has likely now decided there's one remaining piece of the region which hasn't been exploited in this proxy conflict, and that's Lebanon.
A week after his resignation, Saad Hariri has implied he could go back on his decision if Hezbollah stops intervening in regional conflicts, insisting that his return home is days away.
Some 650,000 Syrian refugees are living in Jordan, where up until last year they were denied the right to work for a living. But now, from NGOs to the private sector, hundreds of Syrians have found jobs, a lifeline for those stuck in limbo and struggling for a better life. But as our correspondents in Amman report, those companies hiring refugees have come up against some unexpected challenges.
These embroidered cushions will soon be for sale at an IKEA store near you. Several Jordanians and 100 Syrian refugees have just been hired at this workshop on the outskirts of Amman.
Look at the other fabric to make sure it's done right. Put it like this.
It's the first time the Swedish furniture giant has hired refugees. Among its new employees is this mother of 2. Faten left Syria 5 years ago. But despite bringing her teacher's qualification, she found it impossible to find a job.
This helps me improve my children's lives and pay for their schooling. And it's still IKEA. They have an air of authority. It's a serious company.
IKEA's global chief has flown in to see the development scheme in action.
It's beautiful. Can I see?
For the world's largest furniture company, it's not just about helping refugees.
Aiming at here is that we take one part of local tradition, weaving skills, patterns, material, and we blend that with IKEA's point of view on design, and something new comes. From Jordan to Elmhult to San Francisco to Shanghai, this is going to sell well, I'm sure.
After years of exile, most Syrians have run out of savings. Finding a job, like this one at IKEA, has become a lifeline. There are also several UN-sponsored initiatives to connect Jordanian employers with Syrian workers. In this textile factory with 120 employees, a third of the workforce is now Syrian. They live in a camp and earn 250 euros a month, the minimum wage in Jordan.
Finding a job inside the camp isn't just hard, it's downright impossible. I used to work in this field, so I applied when they came to the camp to look for workers.
Not everyone is so lucky. Out of 650,000 registered refugees in Jordan, so far just 250 have found a job. That's far less than managers of the scheme expected. The biggest hurdle is surprising: problems with recruitment.
Always we hear from Syrian refugees that they have the fear from losing assistance if they work formally, or from losing some durable solutions such as resettlement. But actually we are always doing counseling to inform them that this will never affect the assistance that they are receiving.
Despite some initial issues, the programs are set to grow. In the meantime, these T-shirts, sewn by refugees, are already for sale in New York.
And finally, people told him it was mission impossible. Amir Khalil from the animal welfare group Four Paws rescues animals from disaster areas and war zones. He led a daring, high-risk operation to save the last animals at Magic World, a theme park in Aleppo that was severely damaged by the Syrian conflict. It was a grueling mission that required planning, diplomacy and TLC for these often forgotten victims of the war.
Before the war broke out, the Magic World theme park near Aleppo was home to some 300 animals and hosted hundreds of visitors each day. But after 5 years of conflict, only a ravaged, dystopian shell remains. When these wildlife welfare workers arrived in July 2017, only 13 animals were still alive. Frail and starving, they needed to be fed urgently. Most were exhausted, sick, and traumatized by years of conflict.
Go get some more water. One bowl isn't enough.
This Asian black bear spent years in a confined space with almost no food or water. It took months of planning and diplomacy to rescue these animals and transfer them to their new home. To get them safely out of Syria, members of the Four Paws Association had to negotiate with local factions, warlords and soldiers, a daunting military-like operation with no anesthetics for the beasts. Most of these four-legged refugees now live in the Al-Mawa sanctuary in Jordan.
No, they're much more relaxed than they were before.
It was Dr. Amir Khalil who orchestrated their rescue.
We see on the left side here a Syrian black bear. We have here the two tigers, one male and female, Saida and Sultan.
All the animals here were rescued from war-torn countries. This turtle from Gaza, these hyenas from Syria, and this bear from Iraq. Khalil remembers every detail of his missions. Simba had to be smuggled out of a Mosul zoo, which was controlled by the Islamic State group.
First time I darted him, car exploded beside us. It was a suicide bomber. It was not far away from our place, so I was under stress. He was under stress.
The animals were left to starve by the jihadists. Only 2 of them survived, Simba and Lula the bear.
This very kind old man was risking his life. He left his house and he was staying at the zoo just to help.
In the months since their rescue, the animals have all been nursed back to health. These lions are now strong enough to defend their territory. But the biggest surprise came from Dana. Just 12 hours after arriving in Jordan, the lioness gave birth to a tiny white cub. Health workers named her Hajar, Arabic for immigrant. She only held on for a month before disease caught up with her weakened immune system.
This is Dana. Animals, when they're not well or they're not fed well, just as humans, they're prone to diseases, they're prone to illnesses. So we think that all of that was a factor in what happened.
After spending a month in her new home, Dana shows almost no lasting sign of trauma. But that's not the case for other animals.
So this bear really suffered so much. I remember helicopter was passing up and he just freaked out, he get mad, his memory, he still remember aeroplane passing above its mean, maybe airstrike.
Critics have denounced the excessive means put into rescuing these animals and say the funds would be better spent trying to save people or children. But Dr. Khalil is convinced that what he's doing can also help heal the wounds of war.
People killing each other on both sides, borders are closed. When this animal come, in Syria, I watch the Syrian soldier put the weapon down, the Turkey side put the weapon down, and everyone start to carry with us. So this animal connecting people.
Khalil calls these survivors animal ambassadors. Amid the war, fighting, and destruction, he hopes they can act as a beacon of hope for populations whose lives have been shattered by conflict.
That's it for this edition of Middle East Matters. Catch up with all of our shows on our website and connect with us on social media. Keep it right here on France 24. Lots more news coming up.